And here we are, another edition of Fantasy Football Consistency Show. That's James Knight. That's Ron Rigney. We are back. We've got one more position to talk about. You may want to get a bib or something, maybe put some splatter-proof stuff on your computer because it's going to get ugly. It's not. We're trying to talk about tight ends this week. We know how awful that makes us nauseous and how much we feel about tight ends, but we're going to find some. And we're going to tell you all about it next. All right, here's our final edition of the year in review. We've done quarterbacks, we've done running backs, we've done wide receivers, and now we're done to our very infamous tight end position. And guys, we all know this was, it was a domination of one tight end over everybody else, and his name was not Travis Kelce, kids. It was Trey McBride, 315.9 fantasy points. If he would have been combined with the wide receivers, he would have came in around fourth. He would have beat Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase had 314.6. He had 315. That's how good of a year Mr. McBride had. And why? Because there's nobody else. No, I take that back. There was other people on the team. But it just was the perfect storm. Their running game went to crap. Marvin Harrison was up and down with injuries. They had Michael Wilson and Trey McBride. And Trey McBride got a clutch game every week except week 16. So hopefully you didn't get knocked out of the playoffs in week 16 because of that. But that was his only miss. I take that back. Week 5 and week 16. But either way, dominated all through the year. He was in first place by over 105 points. Between him and second place, which, believe it or not, was Kyle Pitts. There's a trivia question you can slap on some fantasy people. Who was the number 2 in total points tight ends? I doubt if most people, unless they really paid attention, doubt they realize that Kyle Pitts actually took that spot. Gentlemen, here we are. It's just so ugly to talk about. We already know Trey McBride's good. He'll probably go second round. My thinking is he'll go before Brock Bowers this time, who may still go in the second round because everybody still loves Brock. I've seen every article of why he's going to be back and why he's going to be just as great and blah, 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 whatever. But I'm still not drafting him in the second round. And I don't know if I'm going to draft Trey McBride because we don't know the situation there. Will the running backs be back? Is Brissett going to be the quarterback, or are we going to have Kyler Murray just stink up the field again for another year? My thought is they're going to trade Murray for Deshaun Watson, and then everybody will be happy. No, I'm just kidding. But don't ever say that that's not real, because the Cardinals are the Browns of the West. They're becoming that anyway. Just terrible management, team control, whatever you want to call it. So, guys, your thoughts. James, I'll go to you first. The tight end position, anything you just off the top of your head just kind of caught you off guard, good, bad, indifferent? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, we look at clutch rate and our consistency in this game, and we had 4 tight ends that were 60% or better, and that's it. That's it. And I mean, one of those was 60, one of them was 63, and I think that was Kraft, and he missed like half the season.
Yeah, he missed half the season, right?
So yeah, and you look at that, and like you were saying, the only blemish on Trey McBride was that probably week 16 for you in fantasy, and if you played a semifinal game there with him, that might have hurt some, but you weren't there without him because he dominated. You put up a great point there that not only in total points, but there were only 10 players between running back and wide receiver combined that averaged more points than Trey McBride.
Right.
10. So he was the 11th highest scoring non-quarterback fantasy football for PPR. And like you said, that wouldn't be huge, at running back or wide receiver, but because it's tight end, he scored 4 more points a game than everybody. It just crazy. Yeah. Crazy than every other tight end. And but there are some things down there that I think I'm going to be looking for next year. One of the biggest guys, and I talked about him a lot this year, wrote about him in articles, is like Harold Fannin Jr. for Cleveland. I genuinely think he came into the season. He was drafted as the tight end 30 in most drafts.
Right.
So, and he ends up finishing the season as tight end 8, averaging 11.7 points per game. In weeks 13 to 17, again, right before the playoffs and then through the playoffs, he was your tight end 4, averaging 15.8 points per game, only behind McBride, Pitts, like you said, who had a career resurgence this year, and then George Kittle. And so, he led the Browns with 107 targets this year, despite supposedly having to split some time with Njoku, having other guys there. And, I think next year it'll be the exact same thing in Cleveland with him. He's too talented not to get a lot of targets. He's too talented not to lead that team in targets. And like you said, I expect Njoku to go somewhere else, which means he's only going to see the field even more. So,
yeah. Interestingly enough, while, obviously Fannin Jr. had a really good college career, but for a MAC school, Browns drafted him, 1, because he was good. 2, he was a local boy. He's from Canton, Ohio. And to be honest with you, that's why I drafted him in any leagues that I needed a backup tight end. I'm like, wow, might as well draft him, see what he does, right? He lives in my hometown. Let's do it. If you were at the expo, his parents showed up to our Friday night party. Not even they weren't invited. We didn't even know. They were just there before the party started having dinner because they were going to stay there to watch the exhibition game that was on the big screen. And I saw these people walking around. I didn't know who they were. They didn't have a badge, but I don't argue. I don't care. Right. And then somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, Bob, that family over there, that's Harold Fannin Jr.'s mom and dad and sister and brother." What? So I brought him up on stage. Everybody was hooping and hollering and high-fiving them. And, it was just the coolest thing. So I'm hoping they bring him back this year. Maybe I'll try to get their phone number or address. Go, hey, could you bring Harold to the event that you guys came to last year? That was really cool. But it's going to be 2 weeks before the season starts. So he should be available. I don't know if he will. I'm just kidding. But anyway, it was super cool. But yeah, he certainly has the potential to be that person. The Browns offense is probably going to be ran by Shedeur Sanders, who obviously loved Mr. Fannin in those games over the last few weeks. So yeah, it's definitely a positive. Njoku will probably move on. They could use the cap space, and he's getting up there in years. I think he's 29 now. So it's good stuff. And problem is where Fannin's going to go. Is he going to go 5th round, 6th round, earlier, later? Who knows? It's going to be probably each draft will be different based on who loves him more. So, Ron, what's your initial thoughts on tight ends outside of just wanting to violently vomit? But who do you got maybe as one guy, good or bad, that you're either completely in or completely out on going into this year?
Yeah, a couple things to jump off the page when you look at our consistent rankings is, number one, Trey McBride had 105 more points than second place Kyle Pitts. Just let that sink in for a minute. It's quite a bit. And then another thing that I noticed is I was trying to think of a name for this, and I'm going to call it the clutches and bunches. When you look at the clutch games, it seems like these guys were 4 or 5 weeks just lights out, and then you're looking around for where they went. They disappeared, and that seemed to be the case with a lot of these guys. If you go down this list, you're going to have to go down pretty far to find our 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th guys in total points because they just weren't clutch. And it's like, I was talking about when we did the running backs, those Jay Ajayi type seasons where you have all your production in like 8 games and in the other games nobody hears from you. And that's kind of what we had. You had several guys like that. One that I looked at here a minute ago was I think it was Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz was about 4 games in a row, and then all of a sudden nothing, and then he had a couple, and then he was gone. And so it's crazy just trying to find something that aligns with the matchups. And I feel like one of the things that we did, especially in the consistently cashing games with our tight ends, is I feel like we had great matchups, and they just didn't come about. And I don't really know why that was a thing, but guy that I wanted to highlight first that, was another case of, the clutch games that came right in a row and then all of a sudden kind of disappeared was Aranda Gas in the second. And when you look kind of mid-season, dude had 4 straight clutch games, had that huge game for 164 yards, and then all of a sudden disappeared and had 2 out of the last 4 weeks had clutch games there. So kind of came back on the map. one of the things that I am looking forward to coming into next season is that Chargers offense. Number one, looking forward to them having a healthy offensive line. Number two, they have Justin Herbert. Number three, we saw what Mike McDaniel did. He's the new offensive coordinator. We saw what he did for Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith became a fantasy goldmine a couple of years ago. So we'll see how he uses a big target like Gadsden. He's a smart dude on offense. You know he's going to have to utilize those weapons a lot. And again, seeing what Justin Herbert can do behind a healthy offensive line with those two bookend tackles, I'm kind of buying into what they're doing here. But when you look at Gadsden last year, even despite having that offensive line, there were 9 games last year where he had 5 or more targets. A couple of those were like 8, 9 target games. Even week 1, he had 7 targets. So I think they made it, quite clear early on that he was the priority. They want to utilize that mismatch because the dude that's his size that can do what he did, like we talked about his dad. His dad was kind of a matchup problem when he was in the league as well. I remember he had some of the biggest hands you've ever seen. He was just a big dude. And you got a 6'5", 236-pound tight end that runs probably about like his dad does. So that's the guy I'm kind of looking forward to. I don't think he's going to be, again, I don't think I'm drafting a tight end in the second round either, but I could see where you could make a case for McBride. Now, Bowers, a lot of question marks there. We think we know who their coach is. We think we know who their quarterback's going to be. But again, it is still the Raiders, and the Raiders are going to do Raiders things. So let's hold off a little bit with that. But Gadsden is probably the guy that I like the most, that I'm going to probably try to target in the most places.
Yeah, definitely. No, I mean, I remember picking him up and really rolling with him for 4 weeks, but then I kept leaving him in. Like, okay, this week he'll be back. Okay, this week he'll be back. And then by the time I'm not in the playoffs in week 15, then he kicks because I left the son of a bitch in too long. Well, so let's talk about our half a season. Ron, you kind of really wonderful segue. I will not talk about your tight end in your team. I'm going to talk about the other guy who started off like fire. That is Jake Ferguson. And I drafted Jake in a number of leagues. Because just a couple years ago, he had a really good season when Dak played the whole year. Now, I didn't know what Pickens would bring. He obviously brought a lot more than I expected. But regardless of that, weeks 1 through 12, in fact, weeks 1 through 8, Jake Ferguson was number 1 in total points. Number 1. He was ahead of McBride at that point. Then he falls off a couple games, no clutch games, comes back 11 and 12, earns 2 clutch games. But that was the week 12 was the last clutch game for the rest of the season. He ends up the year 5th in total points and goes 0 for 6 for the last 6 games. Now, I haven't broke down those games of why, but he played them. He was 8 of 17, so he played all 17 games. I don't remember him having any injury concerns, but so that's the kind of guy that I feel like will bring good value because, one, he's still going to be on the Cowboys, we assume. They'll still have Lamb. We assume they'll still have Pickens if they sign him. We don't know what the running game is going to be because Javonte Williams is a free agent. So will they pay him? They don't seem to like to pay running backs. So we'll see how that goes. But I feel like Jake Ferguson can be that guy, can be a good value. Like I said, he could be that because people are, we all know most fantasy owners are what have you done for me lately? What did you do for me the last 6 games of the season? You did nothing. You killed me. I was rolling on some of these teams. The one was my FSGA team. I was like 9 and 2 or something like through week 11. And then Ferguson just falls off. I keep leaving him in. He keeps doing nothing or not much of anything. In fact, I think 1 week he actually had a big fat 0. So I like Ferguson. I feel like he can always be a good value. He certainly proved it weeks 1 through 12. But man, that last 6 games, got to look into it deeper to figure out what happened there because he could have ended up, again, he ended up 5th in total points. And that's the amazing part. It's like, and we've talked about this. It's like the big chunks can be so big that they can just die off and still be top 5. I mean, that's just dumbfounding to me. So anyway, Ron, let's go back to you. Who's another guy that you want to like to focus on?
Well, real quick to kind of piggyback on your Jake Ferguson point there, one of the things that I see that pops out to me real quick when you look at his game logs is he had 8 touchdowns on the season, only had 2 of those from week 9 on, but he was putting up those games like he had a game 13 catches for 82 yards, 7 for 40 and a touchdown. But when you only have 40 yards and no touchdowns, but you have 7 catches, that kind of offsets that 40 yards. But when you got later in the season, he's posting 2 for 16, 3 for 19,
Yeah.
5 for 36. So I think it's the yardage totals were never really super high, but the reception totals went down a little bit, and plus he wasn't scoring touchdowns. So when you look at his game log, it's kind of it's an interesting one to check out if you haven't looked at that.
Yeah, no, I got it up now. That
Yeah.
they played the Chargers that week where you got no, that wasn't the 0. That was against Denver.
Denver, yeah.
And they
only
lost
one target that
44
game,
to
too.
24, and he had 0 catches.
Yeah,
He had
only one target.
44 points, and he never got a catch. Those other weeks he lost him. They lost to Minnesota 34-26. Again, another high-scoring game, 2 for 16. They lose to the Chargers, 3 for 19. They beat Washington. He scored 30 points against Washington, 1 for 6. Now, he did catch a touchdown, but still, that's not enough.
Okay.
When you catch a touchdown and you don't earn a clutch game as a tight end, that's really tough to do.
That's a problem.
And then they goes 1 for 5 in week 18, which at that point the Cowboys probably didn't care about anything. Who knows? He may have only played one series and just, I'm not even going to risk it. It was probably outdoors in New York. Yeah, it was. So he's probably like, I'll just sit on the bench. You guys go ahead. But, so I usually don't take week 18 too much with a grain of salt. But, yeah, it's just an interesting one. So, all right, Ron, back to you, though, with your thoughts on another player.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk about the guy on my team because you didn't want to talk about the guy on my team, and it's my team, and I want to talk about him. So
Good.
we're gonna talk about Tyler Warren, and
Yes.
again, he's another guy you got to go down the list. 4th in total points, love it.
Mm-hmm.
Go down the list quite a bit to find him. He's only 47% consistent, but
I'm Mr. Ferguson.
But we know here at Big Guy Fantasy Sports, we know that those tight ends, those rookies, they are not consistent. It's in the guide every year. We know what we're doing here. So I didn't trust him every week, but I like where it's headed. And one of the things that you saw when Daniel Jones was out of the lineup, that production started to do this. But I did notice had at least 5 targets in every game except one, had a few big games, big clutch games there. But again, when you saw Daniel Jones go out of that lineup, those targets the targets were still there, but the catches and receptions weren't there. And I chalked that up to, that rapport he had built with Daniel Jones being gone, but also, our friend Lenny Melnick once said a rookie is a rookie is a rookie. Kind of applies here. So I'm hoping they take that step. I'm hoping they bring Daniel Jones back. I know a lot of Colts fans are kind of up in the air, but my reply to that is, who the hell else are we getting? We don't really have, we got Riley Leonard. Okay, put up the clutch game, but if you actually watch Riley Leonard, it was against the Raiders, wasn't great. So I'm hoping that we re-sign Daniel Jones. I don't want Tua. I don't want Kyler. We can't draft anybody because we have no picks for the next couple of years. Let's just bring the guy back that we know he can rehab in our building. He knows our offense. Yeah. And I think that's where we'll be at. But Tyler Warren, I think, is a guy that will be a decent value for that reason. The quarterback's going to kind of be up in the air. Now, it does scare me a little bit away because if Daniel Jones isn't coming back for a few weeks, it may kind of be a little bit sketchy to get Tyler Warren to produce. So might have to look for a guy a little bit later on. But I think as far as the future going forward, if they can get that quarterback position solidified, and again, another team that had some offensive line issues as the year went on, but if they can shore up those two things, they got themselves finally a weapon in Tyler Warren at the tight end spot.
Yeah, like I said, I think a lot of it's going to depend on where he goes because I'm looking at the article that came out today on Football Guys, and they were talking about top tight ends for next year, and the top 3 list is McBride, Bowers, and Warren. And then they go like Fannin, Kraft, Loveland, those kind of people that were high target players when they were in the system and things were working well for the team. So I feel like Tyler Warren, especially if Jones is coming back, is going to go probably pretty early. I don't know if it certainly won't be in the Bowers McBride area, but he could be 4th, 5th round, which
still a little expensive,
maybe a little rich for my blood. So yeah. All right, James, back to you.
And staying in line with you and with what Ron's saying, both you, the half and half seasons, half bad, half good, doing that stuff. And then the rookies we're talking about, we're actually throwing some rookie tight ends in there. And like you said, we know they're not always going to be consistent. I'm going to touch on Colston Loveland. He came in with the Bears, super talented tight end. Some people looked at it and was like, hey, they've got Cole Kmet. He's a younger tight end, but then they go out and draft Loveland in the, early on in that. And he had a 31% clutch rate, so it wasn't great. But he didn't have his first game of over 7 points until week 9.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about a guy who was almost ignored for most of that. And in weeks 13 through 18, he was tight end 7, averaging 13.6 fantasy points per game. In your championship week, if you played in week 17, he scored 21.4 points that week, only behind McBride in the championship, who may have gotten knocked out in week 16, like we said, because he didn't have a good week 16. But like you were saying, high target guy, he actually finished 3rd on the team with 82 targets, despite the fact they had DJ Moore, Luther Burden got drafted. They already had Roma Dunze. They had Kmet. They had all these guys. They throw to the running backs there. But, I expect DJ Moore will probably be somewhere else. He'll find a new home going into next year. And Ben Johnson shows that he knows what he's doing. He's got that offense humming. He's got them doing stuff. I think Loveland will be easily one of their top 2 targets next year. And I'm basing that on the fact that in the playoffs, Loveland averaged 12.5 targets per game. He had 15 in one game and 10 in another. So in their 2 playoff games. So he's obviously a big part of what they want to do when they know they need to score and do that. And that's even with him missing some time late in that last game when they got eliminated. He missed the final series and a half where he got hurt. And that's why Cole Kmet ended up catching that crazy Caleb Williams touchdown. So I think as he grows up with Caleb Williams, we saw what that offense can do. He's probably a locked tight end, top 10 tight end. And like you said, if he starts creeping down to where I can get him past that middle round of guys that I don't feel comfortable with in the 4th, 5th, and 6th, then, I think Loveland could be one of those targets you could get that will really surprise a lot of people later on in draft.
Yeah. He did. Like you said, he was from week 12 to week 18, 3rd in total points. Definitely a guy. I mean, I think Cole Kmet is just going to be a blocking back. Sure, paying a lot of money to be a blocking tight end, but whatever. Definitely, questionable there. But so I'm going to go back to my 2 seasons in 1. I'm going to talk about Mr. Dallas Goedert. Ends the year 7th in total points, 4th in consistency, which sounds very impressive at a mere 60%. But weeks 1 through 8, he did not play in week 2. So he it's basically 7 games. He was 6-7. So consistency, 80%-ish there, 70, 80%. 6th in total points during that stretch. Bye week comes from week 10 to week 17. He goes 38% consistency. Only 3 clutch games. Now, they were in weeks 14, 15, 16. Nice, but not 17. And it just seemed like to me, it was all touchdowns. And maybe that's what I remember the most. And I'm going to look that up as we're talking. But it just seemed like it's just like every week he was catching touchdowns. Let's take a look at that.
He led the Eagles in touchdowns. I think he did.
I was going to say, yeah. So week 17, touchdown. Week 16, touchdown. Week 15, 2 touchdowns. Week 14, 8 for 78. So there's his big stretch at the end. Again, he was one of those impressive people who actually had a touchdown and didn't earn a clutching in week 17. It's tough to do. And he had 3 catches and a touchdown and didn't earn – he only had 8 yards receiving. So he was like 9.8, which if you remember, tight ends were like around over 10, which normally that's a clutch game. He was close enough. I could say we can give him that one. But yeah, and other than that, like you said, it was just most weeks it was 2 for 24, 2 for 20, 2 for 27. He had 2 touchdowns against the Giants on 3 catches. He had the big game against the Giants in week 6, which he was 9 for 10, 110 in 1 touchdown. But yeah, let's see if we count them up. 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12 touchdowns, I think. I think I counted right. Maybe 11. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That was week 19, so 11. So he's catching more touchdowns than anybody on the team, but still only 60% consistent and 7th in total points, which means basically they just look for him in the end zone, which is fine, but it's just a question of what we do. But we got changes coming in Philadelphia. Changes coming to about every team when it comes right down to it. So we'll see. I mean, I always like Goedert, but he's getting up in years. In fact, he might be over 30.
He's 30. He's 31. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, 31. So, yeah. So he ain't getting any younger either. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. So, all right, James, let's go back to you for another tight end you'd like to talk about.
And, it's, again, younger tight ends. And this guy, like I mentioned, we talked about, he's in the top 4 of the clutch rated. 63% is Tucker Kraft.
Mm-hmm.
He got hurt, and I'm really hoping that a lot of that sours some people. They're not really thinking about it maybe next year as he does stuff. And then everybody's always arguing about which one of the 5 wide receivers is going to be the top receiving target in Green Bay. So, but the thing is, at the end of that, he ends up tied for tight end 2 on the points per game at 12.7. He had 63 percent clutch rate, and like I said, in games where he was healthy and doing that, he led them in targets in all but 2 games that he was actually in for targets. And I think that it plays to his advantage. Again, one, he's huge on yak. He can catch anything, with that. Jordan Love absolutely trusts him more than he does, I think, any of the receivers there, with probably good approach considering the fact that most of them are high-end drop guys, it feels like. But Tucker Kraft, like I said, I think we would be talking a little bit differently about the top 3 right now if he doesn't get hurt and plays that whole second half of the season, So he's somebody I'm looking for. And like I said, I hope I can get an injury discount on him next year.
Yeah, no, he'll definitely be on my list as well of somebody that I'd like to target, first make sure he's 100% healthy. But yeah, definitely like him. Like hopefully he comes again. If he's at 6th, 7th round, definitely will be on my list for that area. Ron, what about you? What's up on you?
So we're going to go down the list a little bit. We're going to go with a guy that didn't have a lot of clutch games, but again, there's not a lot of guys in this position that had a lot of clutch games in the first place. But this is a guy that I've talked about a couple times, and when I'm talking about Tyler Warren, and you're kind of waiting for maybe Daniel Jones to come back and really trust Tyler Warren, guy that you might draft as a real late backup. He might even not get drafted if you play in 10-team leagues, but he's a guy that I'm really kind of just hoping sticks around, and I could put him in those flex spots in Kings Classic, and that's Gunnar Helm. And I keep talking about Gunnar Helm, liked him at Texas, an athletic guy, big 6'5", 240. But one of the things that just recently happened, if you've been paying attention, is a whole new coaching staff there. Who did they hire as their offensive coordinator? Mr. Brian Daboll, who likes to have tight ends as their outlet to their quarterback. Brian Daboll, who's the young quarterback that's still figuring it out, Mr. Cam Ward. So I think that goes together pretty well. He likes to move his tight ends around, likes to put them in a slot, likes to put them in the backfield, coming out of the backfield. I think that matches up really well. And I know they still have Chika Okonkwo. I don't know if he'll be back. I'm really not sure what his contract situation is, but Gunnar Helm, super young, was a 4th-round pick. Just a lot to like here. Had a couple touchdowns last year. Had a handful of games where he had at least 7 targets, caught 6 balls in each one of those games. So I think if they give him a little bit more opportunity, but it's a guy that's not going to cost you a whole lot of draft capital. Nice little backup, and nice little backup to kind of hold on to and see what that role ends up becoming. But everything in Tennessee is kind of going towards that way of making Gunnar Helm. I mean, he's not going to be posting Trey McBride type numbers, but for where you're going to get him, you might be pleasantly surprised with what you end up with.
Yeah, especially one of those tight end premium leagues where you might have a flex or 2 available to help out the situation. Definitely will be of value there. Before we end this, and I want to kind of share one player that we're all going to talk about. I just want to throw out, Ron, you brought up one player. So the one thing we see mostly with tight ends is that they'll have first half, second halves. And we see this with a number of players. Tight ends seem to be like the worst at this. Like we saw Colston Loveland, good second half. We saw Tyler Warren, first half, second half. Jake Ferguson, blah, blah, blah. But we rarely see I call them the roller coaster players. The peak dive 3 3 games up, 3 games down, 3 games up, 3 games down. And that person is our number 5 most consistent tight end, 8th in total points, Mr. Juwan Johnson. First 3 games, boom, off like fire. 3 games, probably tied with, pretty sure he was with McBride. I'll double check here while we're talking. Weeks 1 through 3. Let me check. See if it was McBride or Johnson. I was actually Jake Ferguson, but Johnson was only 3 points behind. So Juwan Johnson scored 42 points first 3 weeks. He's on fire. Everybody's all over this guy on the. Then he goes weeks 4, 5, 6, nothing, no clutch games. Think, oh, that's it. I knew it. 1 week wonder, should have dumped him. Nope. Week 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12, because there was a bye week, he earns 5 straight clutch games. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe this guy's going to be good. Next 3 games, 0, 0, 0. Then week 16 to 17, he earns 2 clutch games. Ends the year 10 out of 17, 8th in total points, 59%. He's 5th overall. Do we trust this guy at all? Like, Tyler Shuck was in there at the end, but then Tyler Shuck was there, and there was 3 weeks, 13, 14, 15, where he doesn't get anything. Doesn't get any clutch games. But then there was 2 in week 16 and 17. Now, I know that Olave was getting 99% of the targets. I get that. Their running game was gone. Alvin Kamara was done. So there was just a lot of mess. And they, were still playing some pretty good ball. Do you trust Juwan Johnson? He's going to turn 30 this coming year, which, for tight ends is not horribly out of the question. But on an offense that doesn't have much, unless they go out and get some players, do we trust Juwan Johnson at all? Anybody?
No, absolutely not. No.
Okay. Just had to check,
At the end of the year, they traded away Rashid Shaheed and did that stuff. The Seahawks, good move for the Seahawks, huge thing. They were pretty much just handing jerseys to guys off whoever was near the field got a jersey and they could come out and play receiver or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that, opportunity is big and it's something we need to recognize, especially in season for fantasy. But there's no way anybody in that Saints building is looking down and saying, we're going to rely on 30-year-old Juwan Johnson to be our number 2 target next year. Like, and if they do, they're going to get fired, right? I mean, there's no way that goes all the way through. And we talked about it early on. Like you said, the only way he could have kept it up, and I think we all agreed on that early on, was just the lack of there being anybody else there. He had to get targeted. And like you said, the fact that the Saints even played competitive football with him being the number 2 option is wild. Kamara packed it in for the end of the season.
Yeah.
Like I said, they traded away Rashid Shaheed. They were starting Tyler Shuck, a rookie. And it's like, how is this team even competitive? And like you said, those games attributed to exactly what Ron said, where Juwan Johnson wasn't just getting clutch games. He was scoring like 30 and 40-point games and crazy.
Especially early on, yeah.
And then, like you said, you would go 3 weeks with him getting 2 for 18, 2 for 12, stuff like that. And yeah, it's like, there's no way. I can't trust him. And even if he fell all the way down, I still wouldn't be surprised next year that most people will kind of forget about that, how good he may have actually finished off for what he did. And he'll probably go undrafted. And if he does do it and he has a couple good weeks, it'll probably be almost a mirror image of this year again, where it's just opportunity leads him to have a decent enough, you can fill him in. But even then, you're probably going to start him on the wrong weeks over the stud tight end that you drafted that you expected to be better, and vice versa. So yeah, not in my book. I just can't do it.
And I feel like, are you drafting him?
I mean, you might have to, just because it gets kind of hairy in those flex spots. So I'll disagree with James there. There's going to be people drafting him, and I might be one of them because I may be on my 3rd flex, and I'm like, I got to get something in there. But when you look at his season last year, 77 grabs, 102 targets, 3 touchdowns. So the touchdowns weren't there, but the targets were there. But again, too many question marks, like James said, like you said. A lot of mock drafts, I see them getting Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame, which is a great ad for them. But that does not – I mean, it might help the pass game a little bit, but you got to have guys to throw to. If you have one guy to throw to, I'm no NFL defensive coordinator, but I know if the other team has one really good guy, we probably want to stop that really good guy, and that's probably going to be their really good guy. So, again, they're not going to pin their hopes on him like James said, but I think there will be people that will value him a little bit more than we might. I don't think it's out of the question I would take him, but am I targeting him as my tight end 1? I really hope it does not get to that point for me.
No, and I certainly wouldn't either. My thought was this: one, we have to see what they do in free agency. Do they go get another younger tight end? I mean, I know they've got our 1 week wonder. I forget what his name was. Stoll, Jack Stoll. Was that the guy?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, Jack Stoll, our 1 week wonder, where he had like 2 touchdowns in the game, 3 catches for 2 touchdowns. Anyway, but if they don't go get somebody, again, my thought is that he probably gets paid pennies. I mean, pennies for a pro player. He's 30 years old. He probably doesn't want to go anywhere else. Comfortable with the team. If they don't go get somebody else, like I said, a deep flex league certainly has possibilities for sure. So, all right, last question. This is a doozy. Do you folks feel that you will draft before round 6 the number 2 tight end in total points, who was only 53% consistent and went crazy weeks 13 through 18, in Mr. Kyle Pitts? Does it matter if it's Kirk Cousins at quarterback or not? Because that's when he scored most of the points. And if Penix is back, he's going to be the starter. Do you have any faith that Kyle Pitts can keep the excitement rolling from a fantasy perspective, or do you feel that it's smoke and mirrors? That it just played out that way? Drake London wasn't in. Bijan was doing most of it. When Bijan wasn't, they were looking to Kyle Pitts, and that's pretty much their last 6 games. Ron?
I'm sitting here thinking about, do I ever see a scenario where I'm going to draft Kyle Pitts? And again, it could be like a Juwan Johnson thing, but I'm kind of thinking of Dr. Seuss here. I will not draft him on a train. I will not draft him on a plane. I will not draft him as my flex. I will not. Again, when you look at his season, we're talking about like these clusters of games that are big. Mm-hmm. He's got a stretch where he went 82, 90, and 166 yards. I'm not a math guy, but I know that's somewhere in the neighborhood of probably about 400 yards. And his total on the season was 928. So almost half his yards came in 3 games. Yeah. So again, it's a case of what we've been talking about before. Now, again, when you look at the whole body of work, if you're not looking at what we preach here with the clutch games and the points every week, 88 catches, 928 yards, 5 touchdowns. That's a breakout.
Number 2 total points, exactly. Baby.
And it number is. 2. When you dig a little closer and you look what we're looking at here, you're not getting it every week. You're just not. And so for those weeks that you do get it, it's worth it. But I just haven't seen, I hate to say it, I have not seen enough. We've been waiting on this breakout for a while now, and he actually had a 1,000-yard season. If you look at his stats, he actually had a 1,000-yard season as a rookie, which I never would have thought.
No, yeah.
And one of the best rookie tight end seasons, yeah.
Right, 1,020.
Yeah, he was one of the few that earned over the 60% in their rookie season. And that's why everybody just every year kept drafting him high, because it's like, oh, look at his talent. Look at this. Oh, look at this rookie season. Look at it. And it just the consistency's never been there.
And he's been in the lineup. It's not that he's missed games. He only missed games. Yeah. He missed 6 games his second year, played 10. But I think it's, when you see those totals of 600 yards those next couple of years and that 300-yard season where he got hurt, it kind of makes you forget about that other one. So maybe he is the guy we thought he was. Maybe he's got a coordinator that will use him correctly. I don't know, but I just don't trust. I probably trust where I would get Juwan Johnson at and that value over where I would have to be forced to take Kyle Pitts this coming season.
Yeah, I think, so just to kind of wrap all this up, for all of you folks listening, let us repeat one very important thing. Number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 9, and number 6, and number 8 in total points were all below 60% consistent. Numbers 4, 5, and 9 were below 50%. Folks, do not look at the total points when you're looking at tight ends next year. If you're not paying attention to what we're preaching, you're going to miss out and you're going to make the wrong picks. Yes, Trey McBride's a god. No argument from anyone. But you're going to have to draft him in round 2, probably. Bach Bowers is going to go high. 2, 3, I don't know, round. But folks, don't buy into the total points, especially in this case, because they are so deceiving. I mean, Travis Kelce was 3rd in total points. We don't even know if he's even going to play another year. He may or may not. Even if he does come back, I'm out on him. He's washed up. Nothing against him. The guy's Hall of Famer. There's no doubt about it. But hopefully you listened tonight and you paid attention to the guys we are targeting, the guys who have the potential to have that stretches of first half, second half, because those are what matter. The Juwan Johnsons roller coasters are not what you want on your team. Yes, at the end of the year, he was 59% consistent and ranked 4th. It's 5th. It's hard to argue. But that roller coaster is going to drive you nuts because what that makes you do is second guess your coaching every week, and you don't want that. You want, even if it stretches and then they start falling off, there could be reasons, offensive line, quarterback situation, injuries to whatever. So many things. But stretches mean they have that ability to put it together weeks after weeks. That's what you want. It's going to be rare to find any tight end that's over 60% consistent. It's just the way it is. If you can find them, and it might be the Tucker Crafts, it may be Fannin, it may be, heck, we didn't even talk about Brenton Strange, who had a nice stretch run at the end when he came back with healthy. He was putting up a nice rapport with Trevor Lawrence, who seems to be coming into his own. So we didn't even talk about that one, but that's another one that certainly will be on my radar because I think he has that potential. So, guys, thanks again for being a part of this. Any last words you have other than what I just kind of preached?
Yeah, I'll say something real quick. The one thing about Kyle Pitts is people forget. It feels like he's been letting us down for a decade. He's 25 years old.
Wow.
You know what I mean? He's 25.
It does feel like a decade.
Technically, he hasn't even hit what people consider their prime years for a tight end.
That's fair point.
You know what I mean? Like, it's wild when you think about it because I feel like it was like 10 years ago I drafted him that rookie season or whatever. You picked him up, and it's like I can't believe he's 25 years old. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is dumbfounding. Yeah, it is dumbfounding. Ron, you got a card for us? Sorry.
Of course. And real quick too, let's not forget Kyle Pitts is a free agent too. So
that's right. He could easily
he might find a new home where
play for Arthur Smith again.
He might. You never know. He could be. Yeah. Imagine that. So
that would be wow.
I went on a search earlier because I knew we were talking about tight ends. I went digging in the crates for tight end cards, and I came to a realization that I don't have a lot of them. So I did find one. Thought this one was kind of pretty. Mr. J. Novacek, one of the unsung, kind of underrated guys on those Cowboys teams. Man, you hear about Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman, but this dude right here was fun to watch, and he got it done. And he was a bad dude, and he's one of those guys that would catch that little 5-yard comeback route over the middle and drag about 8 guys down for a first down. So got J. Novacek there, and I threw this one in just for fun. I found this one too. Little Randall Cunningham rookie card, 1987 tops. So if you don't know about this guy and you play Madden it back in the day and you had Michael Vick, this guy was the Michael Vick before there was Michael Vick. Man, he was a problem and he was fun to watch. So got a couple of them there. But yeah, these tight ends, I think as I'm sitting here thinking about it, might be kind of the same concept I use with my quarterbacks. I'm going to get me a couple and I'm going to play those matchups.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about con streaming, which is our little fancy word for basically using the consistency model to stream the quarterbacks and tight ends. And I feel like both of these, I mean, tight ends have always been that. We used to think that quarterbacks we needed to do that, and then they kind of picked themselves up, and we found these 4 or 5 that would separate themselves, but it's right back down. And so that may be the ultimate way to do it, is just go crazy on wide receivers, running backs, maybe even a tight end, and then just get a couple guys. I mean, like I said, Stafford saved me in a lot of leagues. I feel like there's a lot of quality depth, but more and more. Wait till you see, I mean, folks. I'm working on the guide. Quarterbacks are blowing my mind with how many of them are becoming the Jared Goffs of home percentages of like 75% and away at like 30. Jalen Hurts. This past year, Josh Allen, he was 8 for 8 at home and 3 for 8 on the road. So that's the kind of information we're going to give you in the guide. That's the kind of information you get from these gentlemen. We keep bringing it. Be that person that wins your league and go, you know the secret. You don't have to share it. So for James Knight, for Ron Rigney, I'm Bob Lung. Everybody take care. God bless. We'll see you probably in a few weeks. Take some time off. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Enjoy the Olympics coming through here. So we'll probably be back, when we get to, whether it's probably around free agent time, start talking about these players changing teams. We've got a lot of coaches changes teams. A lot of interesting stuff there. I'm sure we'll see some articles. I'm sure James, Ron, and I will start putting some things out occasionally just to kind of keep things rolling. But gentlemen, thank you for the wonderful review we've had the last 4 or 5 weeks. So everybody take care. God bless. We'll see you soon. Yeah, that's